Hollywood is a place for stories. But what's Hollywood's story? We're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch Podcast.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 215 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
So we've been gone for a minute because I've been busy taking care of some stuff. You're currently busy in the middle of a production.
Yes.
You're in rehearsals for Cabaret.
Cabaret.
A wonderful story about...
Wonderful musical.
Oh, yes.
So...
Yeah. With a wonderful message, which is no matter how artistic and creative your world is, it can be ruined in an instant.
Yes.
By a better failed artist with a screwed up looking mustache.
We discussed a lot in rehearsals about people that having the idea, they know that Cabaret is a musical and they know they want to go see it, but not having any idea what it's about.
Oh, yeah.
And then when they find out it's set in Berlin in the 1930s, this is not going to have a happy ending.
No.
And it doesn't.
No. Wait a minute. Wasn't there like a movie with Joel Grey and Liza Minnelli?
Yes. It's gotta be great, right?
Oh, yeah. It's accurate.
Or they know the music and like, oh, yes, that's the welcome and bienvenue. Welcome.
Yeah. It's funny because, of course, I am familiar with the musical, and I do have on Blu-ray Cabaret, but also I do have a fascination for that time period, the Weimar Republic. I've done a lot of reading on it. I've actually in the middle of working on a story that takes place during that time period. I've always found myself fascinated by that because the German people, they just came out of World War I. They were suffering from poverty, but...
Right.
They
weren't allowed to have many military, like the world put a cap on them. You can have only so many soldiers. You can have only so many.
Yeah, exactly. Because they just came out of a world war.
Yes, that was their fault.
But they were recovering and they were creating great art. German cinema was becoming world known, and they had Nobel Prizes, 7 of them, 5 of them won by Jewish scientists in Germany.
Yes.
And within a very short amount of time, it all just went away. That's how fast things can go.
Right.
And politics is an interesting thing. And strangely enough, we're going to be talking about today to some degree. But we do have to address, first of all, the Disney takeover did not happen.
It didn't happen. They came out of that board meeting and said, nope.
No, which I think was the right move to make. I think that there are certain times where being a disruptor is a good thing, but it really depends, to my mind, on what your motivations are. If you're just trying to scorch earth just to scorch earth, that's not going to do you any good. There was definitely an idea, to my mind, or at least from what I read, there seemed to be a little bit of vengeance in a lot of that. And also the idea of just profit for profit, even if we just have to liquidate everything and get the shareholders a little bit of extra money on the short term, but basically trashing everything in the meantime. It's a good short-term policy, I guess, but in the long term, it's really not going to do the company any good. Obviously, it would have destroyed the company if that's what you want to do for some quick profit, especially with stuff that's going on now with Disney. It looks like that they have the possibility of turning things around. And since this is the first real podcast we've been able to do in April, we didn't get a chance to talk about CinemaCon. That was the first part of April.
Oh, I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. In Las Vegas, which there wasn't any real news from CinemaCon, stuff that we didn't know about. I was a little torn about really looking over a lot of the news from CinemaCon because, again, I'm really spoiler phobic. But they did show the first 10 minutes of different movies that they're working on. If you went to CinemaCon, then you did get to see the first 9 minutes of Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh.
And people are really excited about it. There was trailers for the new Alien. Romulus, they have released the teaser trailer. And I didn't think I could be more scared of a face hugger. But, oh my God, there's a scene where people are being chased down a hallway by a bunch of face huggers.
Ooh, that's a nightmare.
I mean, they are fast. They jump.
Oh, I remember being scared to death in Aliens and the face hugger coming down the pipe. I can still see that in my head and still remember how it made me feel.
Well,
And that was
watch
just a
the
puppet, you know?
yeah, watch this trailer. It will take all of that out of your mind. You will look at those days like it was the best thing you ever saw. It was sweet dreams for you. Obviously, the franchise has been a little bit shaky, which happens, but I feel like there's something going on in Hollywood right now about them really being attracted to nostalgia and bringing some things back,
Uh-huh.
although we are getting some original IPs, which we weren't getting before.
Mhm.
But I do feel like they are digging deep in their bag of tricks to find out, hey, they liked Beetlejuice. Let's bring that
Right.
back, which I'm not complaining about because I am looking forward to Beetlejuice.
Very, yeah.
But CinemaCon was very much a rah, hey, let's get people excited about movies again because, well, going back to politics, it feels like the Hollywood story right now is what politics is like, which is it's very polarized. It's either the movie's the greatest thing that's ever come out and people are just excited about it, or it's absolutely horrible, terrible. It should have never been made. It's a train wreck. Everybody's really excited about the Deadpool trailer, and we're definitely going to talk about that. But everybody's just praising that. But then, of course, people have stopped talking about Madam Web because they're talking about Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon.
Ah,
And you're sitting here going, Rebel what?
sounds like a Star Wars thing, is it?
Well, they're calling it a Star Wars ripoff, is what they're calling it.
Oh, okay. All right.
So they're saying it's Zack Snyder's Star Wars.
Oh, okay. All right.
Except apparently it's not very good. I think it's a Netflix, it was a two-parter. I didn't watch it because I ain't trying to hate on stuff. I really feel that Madam Web was the anti-venom for me wanting to hate watch stuff. When Madam Web went into basically where you could buy it for streaming, all these videos came out on YouTube of people hate watching this thing. And I would watch reactors that I knew about. And
Right.
I'm like, after a while, I was like, I just can't anymore. If I know I'm not going to like something, I'm just not going to go watch it. But everybody has been trashing this. I've had my issues with Zack Snyder in the past. I don't really feel like any of his Justice League movies I cared about at all. I had started out with his Superman, Man of Steel, and I didn't like that. To be honest, I don't think I really liked anything that he's done since Sucker Punch. I think Sucker Punch showed the cracks in the armor,
Yep.
and that really hurt me because up to that point, I was a huge Zack Snyder fan. I thought,
Right.
Sucker Punch, this has got to be amazing, and it really wasn't. I feel like a lot of that had to do with he's a great director, and he can make things look pretty, but when he starts writing stuff, then he has problems. I think that, honestly, if he'll just let other people write his stuff for him, I think he'll be fine. But he was really upset that his sci-fi movies didn't get theatrical release, and he was in the press saying that if they had, he would have had $1.5 billion opening weekend.
It opened up against.
Well, see, that's the thing. It was on streaming. He didn't need
Yeah,
them.
or what would it have opened up against? Because everyone's talking about the new Guy Ritchie film that's got all these great big names in it. I know it's on a boat. I don't know much about it, but how badly it did because it opened up against Godzilla and Kong. So
Yeah.
that was the reason. But Guy Ritchie, he hasn't had a hit since like Aladdin, and that had Mickey Mouse money behind it.
Well, here's the thing. And again, this is where things are starting to get back into politics. How you feel about Zack Snyder is really polarizing. You either think he's the most amazing filmmaker ever, or you think he's just the second coming of Ed Wood. And they're either trashing these movies and laughing at Zack Snyder saying that he would have made anything more than $250,000 total on these movies ever, or they're trashing the people who are trashing those movies. And it's really strange to me how the viewing audience has become so absolutely polarized. I'm old enough to remember when people could just be meh about a film. Meh was an option.
Right.
It's like, well, it wasn't bad. It was like a popcorn flick. I enjoyed it. Either that or it wasn't for me, but, it wasn't all that bad. That was an option. And now that's not even an option anymore. There's not any real middle of the road. And I don't know necessarily if it's because the films are different or the way they're being made is different. I just feel like the audience has changed in a real way. And I think after COVID, people got really, really polarized about everything.
Yeah.
It's not just in politics anymore. I think it's everything. People are either, they're really just fanatically love something, or they hate it with a passion and are willing to tell everybody who will listen. I think that's really, to me, has affected a lot of how I do this podcast and what we choose to talk about.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you've never been the hate watcher, ever. Like,
No, if I know I'm not going to like it, I'm just not going to watch it.
yeah, and I at least thought that even if I hated something, it'd be funny to talk about it. And it's gotten to a point now where no, not really. I could have spent longer trashing Madam Web than the actual movie was beginning to end.
That sounds like what most people are doing. So.
Yeah, and I just don't see where that's entertaining anymore. It's entertaining to a certain degree if you want to go down that road and just, hate on stuff, but there's good stuff out there. There's wonderful stuff out there, and we can talk about that instead, and we don't need to talk about Zack Snyder's science fiction movie, regardless of how you feel about it. But we can talk about the Deadpool Wolverine trailer is amazing. And again, but it's funny how that shows the polarization because
Really?
you have because you have people going, oh, Marvel's dead. They can't make any good movies. They've gotten to whatever. Marvel is dead. They're never coming back. Oh my God, did you see that trailer?
Oh.
So it's like getting whiplash listening to some of this. Now, there are some people that I saw online that said they were underwhelmed with the trailer. It's like they could have showed more. It's like, no, this is the reason why you don't always listen to the fans. I was even a little scared, I have to say. I was seeing the second trailer because I wasn't sure I wanted to see any more. I didn't want anything to be spoiled. And there were some people saying, hey, they should have put more in the trailer. No, you don't want more in the trailer. You just want to see the movie. That's not the same thing. Wait for the movie. I know it's going to be a little while, but
It's really not that long.
Yeah, it's not
isn't.
It's not that long, and people saying, "Well, we don't understand what the full plot is of the movie, et cetera, et cetera."
Oh, I get it. I got it.
Yeah, you don't need to know.
Yeah, but I understood what was going on, what the goal was, and so now we just need to figure out how we're going to get there. And that's the point. We know who we are, what we're doing, so now we need to know how we're going to get there. So I thought it was a fine trailer.
It's not like I feel like you have to explain all of this to people because they're not going to go see the movie. They're going to go see the movie.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. I felt like the only thing really that Marvel needed to prove was we're not watering down Deadpool.
Nope.
And they showed the first 9 minutes of the movie at CinemaCon, and Kevin Feige dropped a ton of F-bombs introducing it. So just so that you know, that's basically all they needed to do was they just needed to prove that, no, we're not watering it down. You're going to get what you want, and that's it. And if you want to run the trailer at 1.25 times slow motion and pick out stuff, which is really cool because there's a lot of stuff in there.
Easter eggs.
Lots of Easter eggs. I mean, there are a lot of actors from the old X-Men movies that you see in the corners.
No, I didn't. Of course, I didn't notice, but I didn't watch those slowed down
Oh,
things.
yeah. And when Wolverine and Deadpool come walking out, and for some reason, Deadpool has 2 gold-plated Desert Eagles. There's a shop behind them called Liefeld's Only Feet. Rob Liefeld created Deadpool, but also in comics, he's known for not being really good drawing anatomy and being really crappy drawing feet. And he gets a little bit of a poke there, which is hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Deadpool is in it. Wolverine is in it. Cassandra Nova is living in the dead giant body of Scott Lang. So
Yeah, that was wild.
Oh, yeah. So it's like she's
very cool.
Yeah, she's living in Scott Lang's dead body, which is straight from Old Man Logan, by the way. But Cassandra Nova, I don't know how much you know about this character.
No, nothing.
Yeah, unless you read the comics, this is a pretty deep cut. Without going into too many details, imagine Charles Xavier's evil twin sister.
Ah, okay.
That's who she is.
Yeah, she even looks like it.
Yeah, so Cassandra Nova is, well, I guess you could call her like a sister. They were in the womb together. It's a little more complicated than that.
Right, of course it is.
But she's basically Xavier without any kind of morals. So she is evil.
All right.
In the comic, she was the one who set off the wild sentinel that destroyed Genosha. So what we saw in X-Men 97, in the comics, she was responsible for that.
Okay.
So that's who we're dealing with in this movie.
All right.
And we might be dealing with a lot more. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's like, what did Logan do that destroyed his own world? And if you look at the trailer, like I said, you can tell, although they said we're not going to try to retcon Logan, the movie, but they're definitely using stuff from it. In the fight scene with the TVA agents, you see the overturned truck from Logan.
Oh.
So there's a lot of stuff going on. And I don't need to know. I know that we're getting Deadpool and Wolverine. They're not watering it down. That's all I need to know. You've sold me. I'm sold. I don't need to know anything else.
We know exactly what we need to know.
Yeah.
He has to save his world. The only person that can do that is Logan. Logan's not in his world, so the TVA have to take him over to get him, and Logan is all angsty because he did something awful, and he has to talk him into being a hero. It's the call to adventure in the hero's journey. So that's what we got. We got exactly what we need.
Yeah, I think the people...
Inciting incident, call to adventure, we're ready for the journey.
Yeah, and I feel like the only people who are really complaining about the trailer not having enough is it's not that they want it in the trailer. They just want the movie. And I get that. I want the movie too. I just don't want it spoiled.
Yep.
Because on the other end of it, there's this horror movie that came out recently called Abigail. Yeah, which I haven't seen the trailer for.
Oh,
Have you seen the trailer?
I've seen the trailer, yes.
You've seen it. Now, apparently, there are people complaining about the trailer, saying it gave away too much of the movie. I haven't seen the trailer, but apparently there's a reveal in the trailer that they're like, we would have just loved not to have known that about the movie.
I get that too, but without that, you wouldn't have even known this was this kind of movie. You wouldn't even known it was a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
It would have looked like a heist movie. It would have looked like Silent Night, Deadly Night. Is that the one with David Harbour as Santa?
Yeah.
Like, it would have looked like that movie.
Yeah.
So without that, I get why they did it.
Well,
but it would have been a very cool surprise.
Yeah, well, I figured there's a way you could have cut the trailer. Like I said, I didn't see the trailer, so I don't know what the reveal is. But I feel like you could cut the trailer in a way that you could represent this as a horror movie without necessarily giving away, I guess, what the big reveal is in it. But again, I just feel like if people who are complaining about Deadpool not giving away enough, I just feel like, no, just save it. Save it. I don't want to know. You really don't want to know. You just want to see the movie. And we're going to get it. It's fine.
Yes.
It's fine. And there's some other great movies coming up. I'm really looking forward to Eggers' Nosferatu.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. So.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Well, you're familiar with the old silent movie. They're doing a black and white remake of it with Pennywise himself in the lead.
Really?
Which is going to be perfect.
Bill Skarsgård. Any flavor of Skarsgård would have been nice in that role.
Oh, yeah.
Stellan Skarsgård. Put him in there.
Oh, yeah. And you have this great horror director who brought us The Witch, who brought us The Lighthouse. It's going to be a black and white glory, and I can't wait for that one either. There's a lot of good stuff that's coming out, and I did see a trailer for Kraven the Hunter, so there's other stuff coming out too.
I've seen a trailer for Kraven. I don't know if it was a teaser or if it's the same one you saw, but it looked interesting.
I'm thinking maybe the weight of Madam Web has me
wary. Yes.
Wary of it.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to be upset if it's good. If they turn it around and people like it, at this point,
got to do better, Sony.
I guess so. I feel like they need to figure something out.
Give us some more Spider-Verse.
Oh, yeah. Please give us more Spider-Verse. That they're knocking out of the park.
Right.
But before we go, let's talk X-Men 97. Now, you said you are
caught up. Yep.
And I'm caught up as well. I don't want to go into too many spoilers.
Right. It's not going to be easy. But I'll tell you, I realized why I don't mind spoilers, because they don't work on me. Because before I saw the last episode, I had seen something come up that says, this is the villain reveal, and this is who he is and everything. And, I saw it. But then when the episode started playing and they started playing Purple People Eater, what came in my mind is like, oh, we're going to have Kilgrave on here. And then it was still like a surprise to me when the villain was revealed. And man, was that a badass reveal.
Oh,
I
yeah.
still have chills thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
So when I realized it was still a surprise to me. So spoilers must not work on me because I don't absorb them. It's like
You're
the
just,
purple people eater. Oh, it must be the purple man. For some reason, Kilgrave's going to be in
yeah.
X-Men 97. All right.
Yeah. But we didn't get a chance to podcast that week. We do have to mention episode 5. When I watched this, I was out of town. I was watching it on my iPad. I was doing my training, and I was like, oh, it was Wednesday. And I'm like, oh, that's right, X-Men.
It comes out. Yay.
So I pull out the iPad, and I'm like, who in the world spilled Akira all over my X-Men?
It was very Akira, wasn't it?
Yeah. And by the time you got to the end of it, I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And of course, as you point out, this is comic book stuff.
It's comic book.
It's not going to be permanent.
It's sad, but it's not going to be permanent.
Yeah. And I understand that. But a lot of people, their reaction was usually this idea of time travel, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey fixing stuff.
Right.
Most people hate that. What's the point of doing anything if you're just going to
go? If you can just undo it, yes.
Yeah, but I did watch a few reactions to this episode, and people were like, "You better timey wimey fix this.
Don't take our favorite."
Oh yeah, it is crazy, and
it makes for great storytelling. It really does.
It does, and
they have to put us through hell to make us love it.
Now, a lot of stuff went by, and there was things I was watching back on that episode 5, because there were some weird, interesting things there. I mean, I knew the history of Genosha, and I didn't think they were going to do the Wild Sentinel thing. When they did that, I was like, oh my God, they're going there. That's nuts. But before then, when the Watcher shows up, I'm freaked. It's, oh my God, that's the Watcher.
Yep, right there.
It's oh my, this is not good.
No, someone had to point it out to me. I completely missed it. Someone had to point it out to me. So
yeah, I think because I was watching it on an iPad, by making it a smaller screen,
you saw it more. Yeah,
I was able to notice that stuff. But yeah, I mean, Gambit basically doing the Akira motorcycle stunts was amazing. And again, it was like the way they ended it. And the line at the end, did that line sound familiar to you at all?
I'm not sure.
Do you remember WandaVision?
Yeah.
Do you remember Wanda walking in and the Vision is on the table dismantled?
Oh, no.
And she puts her hand on his disembodied head and says, I can't feel you.
Oh, wow.
And then they ended X-Men 97 with that line. I'm like, you bastards. How could you? Oh my God.
Break our hearts.
You just showed Cable, so there's time travel. Right. We know.
Yep. Somehow, clone, whatever it is.
Although complete old bastard that I am, I did point out to you that the way timelines work is, you can change it, but it's just a new timeline. That timeline where they died,
it's still there. He always died.
It's always going to be there.
Yeah.
We're just not going to be watching that timeline. We're going to watch a timeline where they reverse it or whatever, or fix it. And again, the old mean, grizzly old me has to live with this fact that, there's a timeline where terrible things happened and it's never going to get fixed. It's just going to be a new timeline.
Yeah.
Of course, then the next episode, people were like, oh my God, we got to find out what happened. And no, we got this other story we've set up.
They've called that a lull. And I was like, this isn't a lull. This is actually what it's supposed to be, because this season of television has moved so fast. I've talked about that. The first two episodes could have been an entire season. And so this is what it was supposed to be. And so, it is. And then the last episode that we've had, when we have the big reveal of the villain, and then the thing with the Sentinels, that is something that was actually in the Wolverine podcast that they did recently about, I don't want to spoil it, but the androids is what, is what we're looking at, androids. So that was interesting.
Oh yeah. They're going down some really interesting roads with the characters there. I mean, with what they're developing, and also with the big bad that's just been revealed. I'm like, oh, they're going there.
Right. Yep.
And especially the way that they ended it.
Whew.
That was...
God, I still have chills.
Yeah, it's
how did you do that?
Yeah.
How are you keeping that contained? What is going to happen when that gets out?
Oh yeah, they've obviously set up some really interesting story here, and I'm going to say it every chance that I get. Bo DeMeo, they need to fix that, man. They need to James Gunn that stuff. They need, however they got to do it, they need to James Gunn this somehow. He's already written season 2, and he was working on season 3. There's time. Again, nobody's really talking about what really happened with this. And obviously, it were something terrible. If this was a John Majors situation, no, I don't care how good the writing is. You can't bring him back. You shouldn't bring him back. But if it's what people are saying, if this is just some OnlyFans nonsense, they shouldn't have got rid of him in the first place.
Right.
And especially with, holy cow, this is some good writing. Yeah, James Gunn that. Fix it. James Gunn the whole thing. Bring him back.
Yep.
Because we definitely need more of that. But, oh, good Lord. One thing that Bo DeMeo has been talking about online is how after 5, he says it just keeps getting weirder and weirder from there. And they're not kidding. Nope. They have put all their cards on the table, or at least you think they have.
I thought so. I thought they're putting out as much story as possible because they didn't know if they were going to get another season. It was like, God, we got Skinny Mojo. I loved Skinny Mojo. That was great. Yeah. But like in my mind, that could have been a 2-parter episode when it was like 15 minutes. Yeah. But, they could have stretched it out, but they're throwing it all. Everything's getting thrown in there really fast.
Yeah. And it's insane at the pacing that everything's going. And it's something we've talked about before. A lot of these episodes, you could have made just about any of them 2-parters.
Oh, yeah.
There's that much story. The pacing.
Oh, Storm and Forge, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That, against the Entity, that could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, a 2-parter, definitely.
And the thing is, when they brought out the Adversary, and I'm like, yeah, which I don't know how much you know about that past, but the reason
the Entity, of course I didn't know what it was.
The Adversary was something that first summoned during Vietnam. And I thought that was an interesting parallel because Forge, he's expressing his guilt because he's made these weapons against mutants. And the Adversary was another regret of his. It's where he used his mother's magic to summon this demon. And that was a huge regret for him because obviously of all the damage that the Adversary was able to do by being released into this world. And so there's a lot of that idea of power and regret. And even Forge is getting great story, but everybody's getting great story.
Everyone's getting great.
And the introduction of some characters, some fan favorite characters, even though we've gotten some great reveals this week, there's something over the horizon that's about ready to happen. And how does that happen? How are they going to deal with this situation and what's going to happen? Forces collide, and not just, good and evil, but there's other stuff, over the horizon. And I don't know what's going to happen next, but I guess we'll see.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 215. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. From Andy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.